Welcome to The Dream Show. I'm Jane, Teresa Anderson, and this is episode 253. And our guest today, bringing a dream for us to explore and interpret, is Taz. Taz from Melbourne, Australia. Now, if you've never listened to The Dream Show before, I have to let you know that when we have a guest on the show, I know nothing about the dream until we start recording. And then you hear me hear the dream for the first time, and you follow the process from there. And we have actually just finished recording all of that, and I'm here just to add the beginning of the show on, so I can tell you that you're going to really enjoy this dream. And it's come up for Taz, as you will hear her explain, at a time in her life when she's actually just about to move interstate. And in her dream, there are some very exciting and interesting and colourful things happening, and there are also some quite scary things there too. And you'll hear us say at the end of our exploration how the simple exploring of the dream and uncovering what it meant gave her the shift from seeing this as a scary and unsettling dream into seeing it as something really very positive and giving her help and direction as she moves into state. And of course, there's a lot more to it than that too. So. A good one for where we are at the moment, which is not far into a new year, and where many of us are maybe branching out in new ways as well, even if just branching into a new world and getting over Christmas and all of that. So before we go there, just a reminder of the websites. My main website is janeteresa.com. That's Teresa without an H. And that's where you go. You can listen to every episode of The Dream Show that's ever been, but you can also hear The Dream Show on all the usual platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music. Just about anywhere where you listen to a podcast, it will be there. Search for The Dream Show with Jane Teresa Anderson for it to come up quickly. At janeteresa.com, there's also hundreds of blogs on dreams and dreaming that I've written. There's information about my books, where you can buy my books. There's how you can contact me to have private consultations, mentoring. And there are also links to my other website, which is the Dream Academy. Now, the Dream Academy is dream-academy-online.com, and that's where you go to do online courses, which you can do in your own time, at your own pace. And the first one is how to interpret your dream step by step. The second one is Dream Alchemy, and the third and fourth ones are studying to become a dream therapist at a professional level. So that's where you go if you're interested in doing courses and extending your ability to explore and understand your own dreams and help other people to do the same. Otherwise, find me on the usual socials, Facebook, Instagram. But let's now go on with Taz and her dream. Welcome to The Dream Show, Taz.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. And we're not far away. You're in Melbourne, and across the water, here I am sitting in Hobart. But we've had some very different experiences over the past few months, haven't we?
We definitely have, with Melbourne being in the longest lockdown, and it's been very different over the past 2 years.
Yes, whereas we in Tasmania have more or less had normal life, just with extra precautions. But you're free and out there now, and I'm really excited to hear your dream. As always, I have no idea what dream a guest brings, so it's over to you now, Taz.
Great. So approximately about 2 weeks ago, I had a very vivid, very strange dream. So I've made the decision to go interstate and to move to another state where I have a property, and my tenants have recently moved out, so I'm going to move into my property. And so what the dream was it was me and my sister that also lives in Melbourne. We flew together to another state in Sydney, to Sydney, and we had our suitcases, and we were at my house. And we opened the door, and we were going to just bunk at the house until my stuff arrived, and sleep on the floor, etc. Until my stuff arrived. And then we opened the door, and then all of a sudden there's all this wildlife inside the house, and both of us got very shocked. So there was a few insects flying around and spiders, and I mean, in Australia that's a bit normal, but there was also a few birds. And as we opened the front door, the birds flew out the front door, But the house is completely like there's no furniture or there's no furniture or anything like that. But as we entered, there were lots of snakes on the floor, and the snakes. The thing that really stuck out for me, there were probably about 10 snakes or 15 snakes all on the floor, and we got both of us saw the snakes and we got very scared. So, and I ran outside of the house and just stood at the front of the door. But my sister was very brave and she was coming in and out, trying to clean up. And then I decided to go inside and I walked through the hallway and we opened the back door, which opens up to my back garden. And I just decided to sit outside in the back garden while she was kind of being busy inside the house cleaning up. But there were lots of different snakes, and one thing that was quite vivid about the snakes was that they were not just one color. So they had two colors. So for example, one was bright green, and then one would be would have a different like a darker color to it, like a brown, and one would be a pink, and then it would have a dark purple attached to it. So it was very obscure, and then it felt like it was a bit of a wildlife sanctuary in my house, and both of us were quite scared, but also just wondering what was going on.
And is that how it ended?
Yeah, and it ended with me just sitting at the back and just while my sister runs in and out, and that's when I woke up thinking that was a very strange dream with all these snakes on the floor.
It's strange.
We don't know how they got in.
No, it's strange, and it's also really lovely. I'm just writing down the last bit. We don't know how they got in, because that's probably quite important. Just beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and yet scary.
Yeah, it was. We were just, I think maybe not scared. We were shocked because we were just expecting an empty house and we could put our suitcases in and unpack and etc. But we were not expecting wildlife. So
the overall emotion was shock.
Shock and probably a bit of scared, but more shock.
Yeah. And did you get the feeling towards the end of the dream that while you sat around at the back, that your sister was going to get all the wildlife out and you were actually going to be able to get your stuff in and, bunk on the floor from the suitcases and then bring your stuff in later? Did you get the feeling that the original plan was going to play out, or how?
Yeah, so I felt like she was probably a bit braver in this situation where she was trying to get them out. I think during the dream, she was definitely struggling to, because she didn't know how to handle the snakes, and the snakes were very still. They weren't it was like they were sleeping, and they weren't slithering or moving around. And it was, it was, I just felt very, she was definitely doing a lot of the work.
And in waking life, is your sister actually braver than you or not?
She is. She's a sister that when I was younger, our history is that we didn't get along very well. But I moved to Melbourne about 2.5 years ago, and she's been a very large support of mine. I've got two other sisters, and she's during the last 2 years, she's been a very large support. So, why her than my other two sisters, I'm not sure, but maybe it's because of the last 2 years has brought us together very closely. But yeah,
So you see her as a support and someone that you used to not get on quite so well with, but have actually become quite close to.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. And how else would you, if you were to pick 3 words to describe her general personality and approach to life, what would you pick?
I would say she's very strong, and she's the type of person that will just, something needs to be done, she'll just go in and get it done. She'll no mucking around, and she's also quite probably a third word is, she's quite confident and accommodating.
Accommodating, yeah. Even accommodating the snakes and the spiders and the insects. Okay, no, that's really lovely. And one of the things lots of things really strike me about this beautiful dream. And one is that you go through all that shock and the scared, and we've got to get these animals out of the house, and yet then you call it a wildlife sanctuary. So, what made it feel like a wildlife sanctuary?
I guess whenever I visited, wildlife parks. Especially here in Australia, they've been it had a very similar feel. So lots of birds and lots of butterflies and lots of different insects and animals and creatures around. So it had a very similar feel, and that's why I thought, it's a bit of a wildlife sanctuary. But the snakes were probably the thing that really scared us the most in the dream, or with the shock. So how are we going to get them out?
How are we going to get them out? So there was variety and abundance of all the other animals, and a normal purpose of a wildlife sanctuary is to what? In your words, what's the purpose of a wildlife sanctuary?
I think for me, a purpose of a wildlife sanctuary is really just to embrace natural beauty and the nature, and for it to be to really embrace it, and to feel the creatures and the animals, and more emotionally, and a wildlife sanctuary can make you feel quite happy because you're amongst nature.
Yeah, beautiful, absolutely beautiful, until you see the snakes.
And yeah, that's right.
So we've got that sense of when I go back to... Now, of course, we're talking symbolism here, and there will be some people I know listening going, no, the snakes are the tenants. We've got to get the tenants out. She's worried about the tenants, and I think some people may be saying that, and that may also be true. I don't know. Well, maybe just... I don't think that's the thrust of the dream, but maybe for people thinking that, can you just address that one at the moment? Are you quite happy that your tenants are going to leave?
Yeah, so they've actually already moved out. They moved out approximately 2 weeks ago, and then my real estate agent did a virtual tour, video tour with me around the house to make sure that I was happy with it, and I was happy with the house. So they actually have already left and moved out.
That's great. I just wanted to clear that because I knew there would be people jumping up and down seeing that connection in the dream, and I was pretty sure, as I said, that wasn't it, but just wanted to get that one out of the way. So even though the dream seems to be about going back to your actual house and your new home in Sydney, and it's probably also more about you, what life you are going back to, not defined by the house itself, but how you will embody your life when you get to Sydney. So, because our house, even if it's our actual house, and this isn't a dream dictionary approach, but our house in a dream, like everything in a dream, represents something about ourselves. So there's a sense of I'm going to this place, and it's where I will live. And how do I feel about that? The dream can be not only about how do I feel about living in Sydney, how do I feel about living in that house, how do I feel about living in my body, in my new work, whatever it is I'm going to do in Sydney. This dream to me is all about how do I feel, where are my fears, where are the good things, what are the things that I haven't identified yet, and how can I, in your words, how can I embrace this natural beauty that I am, that embrace my life, including looking at the things that I'm not quite so sure about, like the snakes.
That's really interesting.
So, you say it is your property. Did you ever live in it, or did you purchase it as a rental property?
It is. I did live in it, yes. I lived in it for approximately 7 years, and then I moved out because I moved away into another state, into Melbourne and other states as well, for jobs, for a job that I received.
So how long is it since you've lived in it?
It's about 2.5 years.
So if you were there for 7 years, and then you add 2.5 years to that, you've got 9.5 years. So you purchased the property originally about 10 years ago?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, because with those snakes on the floor, there were 10 to 15 of them, and sometimes they're always looking for a connection to a number in a dream, and that may or may not be it. So what you're also saying there is that you are going back to a place that you did live in. And what's jumping out at me at the moment, before we get onto those beautiful animals, which is really where I want to go, what's jumping out to me is that with your sister, if you go back in time, you felt you didn't get on so well together, but now you do. So there's kind of like a double thing going on there about you're going back to something, the house, but you're going back in a different way, simply because time has passed, because you've grown, because you've had your sister's support, because, pandemic, because everything. You're going back to an old place, but you're going back in a new way, and maybe hopefully to embrace a different kind of life now. And so maybe one of the reasons why this particular sister's in your dream is also bringing up this feeling of, things can change. Things that with my sister weren't quite right have now become very right and very supportive. So in the same way, things that maybe I may or may not have really enjoyed quite so much in Sydney before, these may also have changed. Now when I go back as a different person and look at my life as it was then, I may see it differently.
Yeah, that's a very interesting way of looking at it and looking at the dream.
So, we all every morning we wake up and open our eyes, we have the opportunity to see life in a different way, particularly if our dreams have done some good work and actually processed our recent experiences and created some slight shifts in our understanding of the world. So what we're getting going back is that you're going, first of all, can I just say, is that first bit a practical consideration? Are you actually thinking of bunking and then in the house until your furniture arrives, or is that just a dream scenario?
That's a dream scenario. I've actually booked a hotel to stay in or I've actually asked a friend if I could stay with them until my stuff comes from Melbourne, and that's more due towards the end of the year. So that's when I'll be moving, but I'll be staying with a friend.
Oh, that's good. That's nice. So you're not bunking. So we've got to know why the dream has you bunking in the house. So I don't know, what was the sense before you saw the wildlife? What was the sense in the dream of, we're going to bunk at my house? What kind of feeling did that give you?
It was actually excitement, happy, and I was really happy that sister was there with me. Whether that feeling of happy and excitement, and it was more like we were going to have a bit of an adventure and experience, and that's when I thought, and then we opened the door and it was a bit of a shock with what we saw.
You got a bigger experience and adventure than you were thinking of expecting. So when we talk about bunking, we all know what it means, but how did that play out in your earlier life? Did you ever go on holidays? Did you bunk anywhere? Was that a word that you would have used for going on holidays or staying with friends? Or what does that word or that thought bring up for you of bunking somewhere?
Yeah, it means, bunking to me it's means that more like, camping, similar to camping, but so we would have had in our suitcases the our sleeping bags and a pillow, and we were just going to sleep on the floor. And so that was more going it's similar to camping, where you're sleeping on the floor and you've got your sleeping bag, and that's really what it meant to me, like having an empty house with no furniture, no bed, and just waiting for the things to come.
I love that. I'm just going to write down waiting for the things to come. Waiting for the things to come before I forget that. So there's that sense of getting right down to basics, isn't it?
That's correct.
Yeah. So, one might also say, even though you're obviously bringing your own furniture and things that you like, and, you've probably done a massive declutter, and I'm taking this, but I'm not taking that. So we can assume that you're only taking the stuff with you that you like or that's practical. There's still this sense when you get right down to basics like a sleeping bag on the floor of, okay, I can do anything with this. What do I want to bring into my life? We're not really talking about the furniture now. In moving to Sydney, it's the sense of, I'm going back to a place I used to know, but I'm going right back to basics. Now, what do I want in my house? What don't I want in my house? And by the way, what are the basics? I'm not asking you that question at the moment. What are the basics? And it appears in the dream that the basics are, well, wildlife sanctuary.
Yeah, okay. That's just something I hadn't even thought of. Yeah.
So there's a sense of I'm going to, as within, we all have the opportunity, particularly, well, we have the opportunity every day, but particularly when we move to a new place and a new job and a new house, how am I going to present myself and how am I going to embrace my life here? And so it's actually really, to me, very, very sensible to go back to basics. What are the key things that I want in my life and I want to be and I want to embrace in my life? What things would be superfluous? What things do I want to invite in? What do I want to bring from my past, maybe symbolised in the dream as your furniture, your actual furniture you're bringing up from Melbourne, and what new things might I invite in? And I'm, revisiting my basics after living a really busy life in Melbourne. Maybe I haven't had this opportunity to really think, well, what are the basics for me? And as you describe it so well, Taz, it's you associate that with camping and adventure and excitement, and that was the feeling you had in the dream too. So it's that feeling of excitement. If I just come right back down to the basics of who I am and what I want out of my life on a day-to-day basis, or how I feel on a day-to-day basis, then from there I've got the excitement and the adventure of building my life in whichever way I choose, inviting in what I want, shooing out what I don't want. I'm looking at the snakes, and embracing my life from there.
Yeah, I can definitely connect with that. For me, the moving back to Sydney, I've got quite a lot, like some really lovely friends there. I don't have any family, but I've got some lovely friends there, and we connect very well. And so it's very much, going back to that basics and what I want when I move back to Sydney and what I'm looking for. So I can very much connect with what you've said there.
So like reprioritizing friends that you've maybe lost touch with that priority, you mean, while you've been in Melbourne?
That's correct. And like I've had a friend that's come back from the UK during the pandemic, and I mean to the last 2 years or 18 months or so in Victoria, it's been quite mentally, it's been quite draining and tough, and I would always go and I would get we were in movie clubs, etc. So I'd get a group email from specific friends saying that they would be going to see a movie or going out for dinner, and I would always feel left out because I was in lockdown.
Yes.
So it was so for me it's kind of reconnecting with them and then in re-energizing that connection.
That's absolutely wonderful. And then at some level probably thinking, and once I start my new job and get involved in work there and day-to-day things, how do I keep those connections going? How do I embrace what's important to me, this wild life, this wild side of my nature, life in general?
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's very true, very real.
So, but in the dream, the first thing you noticed was that you were actually shocked by how much wildlife was inside the house.
That's correct.
Yeah. So it was the insects and birds. You kind of said, and you reminded all our international listeners too, that that's kind of normal for Australia. So you kind of put that to one side like that was expected. But it was the birds at first that drew your attention, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
What kind of birds were they?
I couldn't tell you what their actual name is or what they're called, but they were very colourful. So, I mean, they could have been rosellas or they were very colourful birds.
That's fantastic. And tell me, though I think I know, tell me why they flew out the front door.
I think they saw a space to be outside. Like, so once we opened the front door and they just maybe they felt trapped inside the house and they wanted to be free, or
Yes.
just to get some, to be outside in the free air. And
Yes.
that's why I think, I could be completely wrong, what birds possibly were thinking when they just, as soon as we opened the door, they escaped out. But that's the impression I got, that they wanted to be outside.
Yeah. Interestingly, you wanted to be outside because you were happy to sit in the back garden while your sister did all the work too. Yeah.
Yeah, that also was a strange one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there may or may not here be, although in real life you would absolutely be helping out and cleaning out. In the dream sense, it's that sense of I also want to be free. I've been feeling a bit trapped in Melbourne lockdown, but apart from that, maybe I've been trapped to some extent, and I just want to be free. I'm like the birds flying out the door, and I'm also like me in the dream, sitting in the back garden. I've got this newfound freedom, and I'm not dismissing the freedom from coming out of lockdown, because you know what a massive freedom that is. But I'm also, inviting you to look deeper and say, are there other areas in your life where you have felt a little bit trapped? And it's like, yeah, moving to Sydney is going to be like this sense of, oh, I'm going to be free and have a bigger space, whether that's physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. There's a sense of freedom after having been trapped.
Yeah. So currently it's mainly been the lockdowns and feeling trapped, and then moving to Sydney will give me that freedom to connect with my friends. And even if there's a lockdown in Sydney, we'll be in lockdown together,
Yes.
with those friends. But for me, historically, yeah. So when I was quite, it has been a bit of a difficult. My upbringing was quite difficult, and my connection with my father was not great, and I very much felt trapped in, when I was living at home and growing up, and I did university and stayed with my parents. But as soon as I hit 20 or 21, I left home because I felt trapped at home, quite an unhappy person and child growing up. And I felt like I needed to escape and be free. And as a result of that, I ended up leaving and moving. I moved to Melbourne for a few years, and then I went to the UK, and then I had settled in Sydney. And so I've travelled around a fair bit, but that's probably the last time where I genuinely felt trapped, was when I was younger and growing up, and my relationship with my father was not great.
Yes, so that was a relatively long time ago, because you've done a lot and been a lot and had a lot of freedom since then. But there may still be some sense in the dream of some part of your mind taking you back and saying, that feeling when you left home when you were 2021, that feeling of what the potential was, or what you could do, or what the opportunities were, and it's reminding you that you have that similar kind of, you're not escaping that same kind of trapping, but you have those similar options then. So although life improved for you obviously a lot when you left home, I'll put the symbolism of the dream in here. Were there some snakes in your life back then after you left home?
Maybe after I left home, there were probably, there were probably people, my family live in Queensland, and there were probably people in Queensland that were, I could probably affiliate with those, with being a snake. And as well, even after, when I had moved to Melbourne and I tried to make friends, and quite a few, there's one or two friends that I had made that I had known for quite a while, and that had moved to Melbourne and would reconnected, but they had become very manipulative and jealous, and they would make up stories and tell other friends these stories about me which were not true. So I mean, that's also that there. And also, growing up, my sisters were not supportive or not helpful towards towards what was going on at home. And as a result, I at that time, wouldn't put them in the snake category now, but I would probably have put them in that category back then.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. So there will be that, even though you actually feel probably like your sister in your dream, strong, get things done, confident, accommodating about the move now because of all the growth that you've done in the interim, there's some part of your mind and possibly your unconscious mind that's going, beware, could be snakes out there. We've been through this before, the sense of moving from being trapped to being free. And yet, do you want to be totally free, or do you want to be a little bit careful about who you really are going to pick for your friends and what you're going to do and where you get the support? Because even though I'm sure you can navigate that really well now, there's a part of your experience still lodged in your mindset system that's saying, maybe not, maybe be careful there. And what jumps out to me at what you said there was that sense of when you moved to Melbourne and you recontacted friends, and then they turned out to be a little bit manipulative or jealous, or a lot manipulative and jealous. It was almost like two sides. You went and you thought, oh, my friends, good things. Then, oh, dark side. And that was kind of how you described the snakes. You said the interesting thing about them, I'm just looking back on my notes here, was each of them they were vivid, but each of them had two colours. So, for example, a bright colour and a dark colour. That was right, wasn't it?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. So it's almost like your dream is bringing up these snakes in the grass or snakes indoors, that it's that sense of what may appear to be bright and inviting and attractive may have a dark side. This is just one. I'm going to go at this from a different angle in a minute. So bringing out that look carefully, or don't fall into the same trap. Oh, traps, there's that word. Don't fall into the same traps that you did before with the friends.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
But then if we go even braver, if we bring in your sister from the dream and we say that also, while that is also true, we can get the deepest meaning from a dream. If we look at everyone and everything in a dream as an aspect of the dreamer, we've then got those snakes as representing aspects of yourself. Not to say that you've got a dark side that's manipulative and jealous at all, and definitely not saying that. But everyone has a light side and a dark side, because we all have our shadows, and by those shadows I mean we all have a side of ourselves that I don't want anyone to know about me. and it might be something that you really are actually genuinely working on, an aspect of your character that you want to brush up. And it may also, and often is, something actually really wonderful about yourself that you judge as bad and you keep it as a shadow inside you. So we all have this light side and dark side, and the snakes to some extent may be reminding you of that moving to Sydney may also be an opportunity to acknowledge things about yourself that you've thought have been darker or shadier or best kept undercover, that you actually really want to go, hey, no, everybody, actually, this is me, and I have these aspects to my character, and I've kept them under wraps because I thought it wasn't the way to be in life, but maybe it is.
Yeah, possibly. If I dig into that a bit further, there's that's a possibility. I've always been a very undecisive person, and I think the decision to move back to Sydney, and it's all like I'm starting to make real decisions for myself. So I mean, I guess that might be one aspect that I'm trying to improve on, to really be less undecisive and just make the decisions.
Yes, that makes sense. Yeah, it actually, interestingly, makes sense, because the word that I wrote down straight after that was obscure, and I wrote it in quote marks because I think you said, after describing the snakes, you said it's all pretty obscure. So obscure means, tell me what obscure means. I know what it means, but I want to hear it in your words.
I guess it's, for when I was saying obscure, it's I guess a bit strange, a bit unusual, a bit maybe a bit quirky as well. It's not exactly negative, but it's and even sometimes with my personality, I can be a bit quite excited, an exciting character, and which people might think is a bit strange or obscure, but It's so I think it's, you can look at it at different angles, but for me, obscure is probably more, just being a bit different and being, very, different and possibly a bit strange, but not really in a negative way.
I absolutely love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So there you go. That's what your snakes represent, is a part of, apart from what we discussed earlier, a part of myself, a part of Taz that is quirky, exciting, different. Not sure how other people judge me, because you said I think people don't always like exciting or different. But as you said, definitely not negative. And so these may be aspects of yourself that you really want to bring out into the open, as the birds flew out the door, for example, in the dream, that you want to bring out into the open in Sydney. I want to embrace, to use your word earlier too, I want to embrace more of my wild nature. I want to embrace my quirkiness, my exciting, my difference. And in choosing my friends, I'll choose friends who support me in bringing all of that about myself out into the open. And as you bring them out into the open, maybe they are less like snakes and more like birds.
Yeah, that's very interesting. But I agree.
Because how do snakes change? How do snakes grow?
I'm not quite sure.
They shed their skins.
They do, yes. So they shed their skins. That's correct.
Yeah. So they leave the old skin behind and they grow a new skin, which in snake country usually looks much the same as the old one, but a bit bigger. But metaphorically, you can either, in dealing with those snakes in the dream and letting them out, you can shed your skin and grow bigger and be much the same, or you can shed your skin and have a different skin. But basically, you're shedding your skin as you know it and bringing quirky, exciting, different, no matter what anybody else thinks, out into the open. As you say, it's not negative, but you've kept it, maybe sometimes kept it a little inside because you didn't want to be judged.
That's spot on. That's exactly. That's correct.
Which throws another angle on the fact that it was straight after that you called it a wildlife sanctuary, because that was the next thing I wrote down. So although you described beautifully that a wildlife sanctuary is variety, I put the word abundance, embrace my natural beauty in nature, feel emotional connection and feeling happy. So we're bringing all of that out. But an added thing, isn't a wildlife sanctuary also where you take animals that need a safe space or need to be healed, animals you've run over on the road, things like that. It's a safe space to heal, yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So the fact that you saw this new home in Sydney as a kind of wildlife sanctuary, even though it was a bit shocking and scary, is also that sense of it's a safe space for me to grow and heal and slough off skins and embrace my natural beauty.
I agree, yes. That makes a lot of sense.
Just before we go on to the next, but I just want to go back to the rosellas. I know rosellas are really typical of Sydney, aren't they? And Queensland and New South Wales. You don't have them in Melbourne, do you?
No,
just
we
want
don't.
to put that in for the international listeners. So that really is a very colourful symbol of Sydney. When you think of rosellas in general, what do you see as their energy or feeling?
They're not. For me, whenever I've seen rosellas, I feel like their energy is positive. They're not a bird that would attack you, or they're very much to themselves, and they will, when I see them fly around, they're very colourful, very beautiful, and they really fill the atmosphere with that colour, and they're very gentle in that way. They're not a vicious bird that would attack you or anything like that. They're very much more of a happy bird.
Yes, they are, aren't they? They also tend to be in large numbers, fly in large numbers, don't they? Kind of community connection. So I love what you said there. You said they're very much themselves, which is about you getting going to Sydney and being much more yourself, quirky, exciting, whatever. They're very much themselves. You said they don't attack you, and that stands out in contrast to the snakes. Even though the snakes are asleep in the dream, there's that feeling where a snake could attack you. So there's that feeling of the birds, the rosellas, and maybe that part of yourself that you are realising is never going to attack another person, or is gentle, is happy. But there's definitely, the dream is bringing up those opposites, a sense of attack and not attack, the snakes and the rosellas.
Yeah.
So I don't, there may be some part of yourself that does sometimes have a bit of a verbal attack, and I don't think so. What I suspect is that there may be a shadow side of yourself, maybe from childhood, I don't know, that would like to speak back and answer back and attack and has been kept under wraps.
That's probably correct, and it's probably the way how I've even sometimes as an adult, if someone says something, or like even if it's a family member, a sister, or my mum or my dad, I previously I will probably not say anything and just ignore them and walk away. But like I've got some sisters that can be a bit judgmental, and one of my sisters, like, they rang me and they said something that was quite judgmental about me, and I ended up sticking up for myself and fighting back. So I think as I've gotten older and I've gotten, getting those life experiences in me, I'm learning more to kind of stick up for myself and fight back, and really, it's, I don't think judging people is good, and I think we need to accept people for who they are, and that's, so for me, I'm starting to actually fight back, and which is more, what I mean by that is more sticking up for myself.
Yes, that's absolutely fantastic. And there may be, and you're absolutely doing the right thing, and there may be some unconscious belief in you from way back to childhood and saying that's not sticking up for yourself, that's attacking, quick, pull back in, and we've got to get rid of that voice if it's there, because you are not attacking, you are, as you say, standing up for yourself, which is good. And there may be that sense in the dream as here's the rosellas, here's the part of myself that is freer and standing up for myself and is gentle and is just very much myself, like the rosellas, but deeper down inside me there may be these sleeping snakes that may attack. So there may be this sort of fear based on childhood that I may actually come out and attack like a snake, but I've got to deal with that, and that may be why the snakes are also sleeping in the dream. Yep, that makes sense. Yeah, I think I say this nearly every podcast we do and every client that I do, but I love the way how dreams have meanings on so many different levels, and they all interconnect, that you can take one symbol and apply it at all these different levels.
I agree.
They still connect, yeah. There's two other things I want to go to before asking you where you want to go to here. Sure. And one is that the fact that there were 10 to 15 snakes, and again we've made a loose connection that 10 years ago was when you bought the Sydney place, so that represented an opportunity. But if I say to you 10 to 15, does that relate to the most difficult years when you were a child, aged 10 to 15?
Yes, definitely 10. The difficult years probably started a little bit before 10, but yes, definitely. Those were very difficult years for me.
Mm. And if we say that's 10 to 15, did something shift at 16?
The thing that probably shifted at 16 was I believe I had moved schools at 16. So even because of what was happening at home, I was not a very happy child, and I had moved schools, and I had I've got met some really great friends who were very, lots of different cultures and backgrounds, and we shared a lot, and I'm still very, very good friends with them till today. And I believe that probably that's where the shift maybe at 16 is, that I had met those really good friends who who are lovely people till today, and I'm still friends with. And whereas previously I really didn't have that many friends.
That's so lovely, isn't it, that that happened for you, and also that it again endorses that feeling in the dream that it's not just about you bringing out yourself and your whole natural beauty. It's also about connecting with friends. There's been that connection with friends and getting support all through the dream, like the sister being a support, like for me, the way the rosellas always fly in groups and communities as well. There's that sense of that. And it also, what I love about that is that because you can clearly identify that shift at age 16, it really amplifies that symbol of 10 to 15 snakes in the dream as representing those years from age 10 to 15, where you probably, as we said earlier, probably did want to attack but had to hold back, or you felt that if I stand up for myself, it's going to be taken as an attack, so I can't stick up for myself, and so I'll just make those snakes sleep on the floor because I don't want to awaken them, because I'll say something to my dad and he'll take it as an attack. So that sort of puts even closer emphasis on those snakes.
Yeah.
So we really want to make sure that that those sleeping snakes don't keep on sleeping within you. By sleeping, I'm thinking unconscious now, in case they've got any sense of your unconscious mind. You know how our unconscious mind can influence us to do things or say things that isn't really our conscious intention, and that can be due to our unconscious mind. So there may still be those sleeping snakes in your unconscious mind, may still sometimes make you hold back from sticking up for yourself, or worry that you might say the wrong thing and come across as attacking. So we really want to, perhaps in the dream alchemy that we suggest later, might want to waken those snakes up, educate them, transform them, get them out of the house, and get them to do something wonderful in life. I just want to say, before asking you if you've got any other questions and a few other things, that one of the things that I've been smiling at through the dream is that it reminds me of, it's not the same, but it's very similar, of a very big dream that I had about almost 20 years ago now. And it was so significant for me that I have written about it. And I particularly wrote about it in this is not meant to be a plug, but I particularly wrote about it in the second story in my most recent book, which is called Bird of Paradise. And in my dream, it was a sense of, I went to the fridge and I opened the fridge and all these amazing wildlife flew out, including, first of all, the colourful birds like yours, and yes, they were rosellas or parrots, and then looking deeper into the fridge, and yes, there were snakes, and there were all this wildlife in abundance literally coming out of the frozen fridge and coming out into the world. So there were a lot of parallels between what was happening for me there for that thing, and I also at that time took that to mean that a lot of those wildlife and colourful animals were different aspects of my writing that I needed to embrace more and bring more out into the world in a more colourful way. So I just wanted to mention that connection there.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
So what, for number one question, is there anything else you would like to ask about the dream?
No, it's been very insightful and very helpful. Because when I had the dream, I woke up feeling very negative about the dream, but now talking to you about it, it's changed the way how I've looked at the dream. Changed it and flipped it from a negative and being scared and worried to something that's, you know, a lot more positive. Making that change, to making that move to Sydney is the right move for me, and really embracing it. So
Yes.
I'd like to thank you.
It's a pleasure. Can you feel that as a kind of bodily shift as well?
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
that's one of the lovely things that dreams do, particularly when the symbols are quite surreal, and particularly when they're animal symbols, is that the more you talk and explore those symbols and find out what they really mean, you actually get that kind of bodily shift as well, because the animals often represent energies within us that we can't quite put into words, because if we could put them into words, we'd probably have them as people in the dream, but by having them as animals, it's like this energy that's just coming up and letting go, and yeah, which is really lovely. So, well, thank you, Taz. I'd love to suggest a dream alchemy, and I did suggest something about moving the snakes out of the the dream. But just before we go there, I just mentioned to people listening in case this is the first time you've ever listened to the Dream Show, what we mean by dream alchemy is that dream alchemy is a way of working with the dream to rewire the brain or reprogram the unconscious mind if there's anything that you've identified in the dream that is maybe causing a limitation in your life and that you'd like to free it up or you'd like to change a belief. And sometimes you use it for a dream that's really, really positive and you just want to go, yeah, I really want to amp up that feeling. I want to introduce this dream alchemy. So it's an exercise that has the potential to take the extra step of not only have we explored and interpreted a dream and got something from it and felt a shift in our lives, but the exercise is something that actually continues that process and really cements it in. So is there something in the dream that, and all of this stuff that you feel, yeah, that's the thing in my life that I would like to change, unlimit, open up, ensure?
For me, I think the thing is the thing about the dream that I would probably like to change is to help my sister clean up as well.
Oh, yeah, we didn't address that bit, did we?
I think that's one thing I'd like to change. So my sister's the type of person that she'll just get stuck into it, and I'd like to I probably should have gotten stuck into it as well. But yeah, I think, and I think the things that I'd like to change. Another thing is the fact that the snakes were there, and they've got going back to the way how I've always been a bit more reserved to say things and and speak up when there's negative things said about, like, the example I said about where I had a sister that was judging me, and I think so I think that's really come out, and I need to start doing that a bit more, because it does change, and it just change the way how you feel as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. But because we've got to address that about why you didn't help your sister, to some extent in the dream, there's that feeling of, it was really emphasizing, I need to be outside, I need to be free, I need to be whatever. And funnily enough, although you didn't go and help your sister in the dream, if you look at everyone in a dream as an aspect of yourself, there was an aspect of yourself that is strong, get it done, confident and accommodating, that was actually inside getting stuff sorted out. So in a sense, there was a part of yourself that was doing that. And of course, symbolically, what your sister was doing in the dream was dealing with your inner world. You had that, I've escaped, I'm out, I'm enjoying these freedoms, but inside my inner world, there's these snakes to deal with. And there's some things in there which shocked me, because shock was the original thing in the dream.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really great idea of yours that we use the dream alchemy to get you to go back in and help your sister. So what you're doing there is I'll suggest something in a minute that gets you to actually connect more with your sister by going in and helping her. So that's connecting more with the aspect of yourself that is happy to go into your inner world and sort out these sleeping snakes, maybe once and for all, and maybe wake up the snakes, and they may shed their skins, and they may go out into the world, and we could do something like, you can do anything it doesn't have to make sense. We can send those snakes out into the world, and their new skins are covered with little rosellas or something like that. what just off the top of your head, what would you like to transform the snakes into?
I think I think you're transforming them into, instead of being an actual snake, being a bird, or being something a bit of a different creature, I would say. Maybe a mixture of animals, such as, maybe dogs and cats, as well as a few different types of birds as well.
I love it, absolutely love it. And do you realise, I realise also, of course, the snakes are completely silent. They don't have well, they have a s, but that's all. Whereas birds like rosellas sing beautifully, don't they? So they do actually speak out and stand out for themselves, but in a beautiful way. So I love what you've done there. I love that sense of transforming the snakes into something that's different, quirky, a mixture of animals. You first mentioned dogs and cats, and of course our dogs and cats are supportive to us. They're chosen because they support us in our lives. But then this mixture of animals and the quirky side. Do you ever do art? Do you do drawing, painting, anything like that?
Yes, I do. I do a lot of it. I've recently had a few artworks being submitted for in art galleries.
Oh, wow.
So I do. They're just. I'm very much self-trained. I'm not technical in any way, and I don't know the technical words for certain how to do certain drawings. But so I absolutely love. I love art, and I love to draw.
Oh, that is absolutely fantastic. That's such good news. So your dream alchemy then is on the one hand, just to, whenever you review the dream, to think, oh, look, there I am with my sister helping to just waken those snakes up and sweep them out the door. But your major alchemy is to do a picture, whether it's a huge painting that you later exhibit, or whether it's a small sketch. In dream alchemy, it doesn't matter as long as you spend at least 10 or 15 minutes on something, but you can also make it a lifetime project. But is to create some artwork of those transformed snakes. So what you described there, they've shed their skins and they are now a quirky mixture of animals, dogs, birds, cats. So have the dogs and the cats for the support, and the birds maybe for the that sense to re-echo that sense in the dream of the freedom and the vocalization, the being able to sing and communicate gently, but stand up for themselves, fly up for themselves. So create an artwork like that embodies these shifts and changes in the dream, that in doing that artwork actually transform the snakes, so they're no longer sleeping snakes in your dream house, they're no longer sleeping snakes in your being, and to just enjoy all that change. And whether it's a 10-minute sketch or whether it's a bigger artwork, you've got to hang it on in your home when you get to Sydney.
I will, yes, I definitely will.
So any questions about that?
No, thank you. That's very helpful.
Okay, thank you so much for being a lovely guest on the Dream Show, and I'm sure that you've uplifted a lot of people listening in who are thinking, yeah, I want to be that bird, I want to fly out now, I want to sing my song. Thank you, Taz.
Thank you very much.
That was another lovely dream to explore, wasn't it? I do enjoy doing the Dream Show. It's so lovely meeting people from all over the world and exploring their dreams with them, and seeing and feeling and touching the changes just within the hour that we speak, and knowing that you're all going to really enjoy and take something from it too, which is just so lovely. I was really pleased that I picked up that she was an artist and was able to give her the Dream Alchemy based on that. I don't know whether I just picked it up, or maybe it was all her references to the colours in the dream that maybe tweaked that one. So there are many different ways that you can work with Dream Alchemy. You can work with artwork, you can work with writing, you can work with affirmations, visualizations, body work, lots and lots of different approaches. But it can be really good if you identify a modality that you're very comfortable with and enjoy. So suggesting to Taz that she does that Dream Alchemy through her painting and drawing was... I was really pleased with that, and I think she's going to really enjoy it. So if you'd like to be a guest on the Dream Show, go to janeteresa.com, go to podcasts on the menu, go to the Dream Show on the menu, and you'll see in the drop-down box there's a place where you can go to put your name down to volunteer to be a guest on the show. So once again, just before I go, a reminder of the website, janeteresa.com, that's Teresa without an H, or the Dream Academy at dream-academy-online.com. Have a wonderful month. I know I'll be speaking with some of you between now and then, and on various consultations or mentoring, and I'll speak with you next time. The next episode 254, is due out on the 24th of March 2022 if you're listening to this in real time. I'm Jane Teresa Anderson.